My God, you are a man. Calling the smaller iPhone 14 Pro really heavy means you need to join a gym, my friend, and fast. It's a little heavier than other phones of its size, but calling it real heavy? Come on! Thank you, Martin. After releasing my video on returning the iPhone 14 Pro and going back to an iPhone 13 mini, even buying another one because I sold my last one, I've been thinking more about why the 13 mini is still such a great phone even in 2023 after the release of the 14, 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max. And I've also been reading through the comments of my last video and it's given me some great insights to back up my own thoughts. I'll come back to those comments, so make sure you watch through to the end. But let me run you through a mix of pros and cons of the 13 mini versus other available iPhone alternatives in this video and tell you why it's still worth it in 2023. Oh, very much worth it indeed. Let me start with the fact that the iPhone 13 mini is such a small and powerful device that essentially frees you up to do so many things if you're not a slave to watching things for a long time on the screen of your phone. The power of the A15 chipset means that not only do you get a better battery life out of the device than the 12 mini that it superseded, but you're also likely to get ongoing support for another 5 years as far as iOS updates are concerned. It's the same chipset that's used in the iPhone 14 and 14 Max, meaning that it's going to get the same support on the same support timetable as these newer generation phones. So if you're in the market for a smaller phone, it really is an excellent value buy. So while we're talking about size, people just seem to love the feel and balance of the phone in the hand, just like me. The straight edges of the build and the build quality just feels good in your hand. It feels ideally made for one-handed operation, whereas the 14 Pro's balance just feels all wrong. Yes, you get that better chipset always on display and the thingy island thing, which I don't really care about, and the powerful extra camera in the 14 Pro and all that it can do. But it's also a lot more expensive and that weight balance just feels all wrong. It's quite a dilemma, but I wonder if it's just on the wrong side of the weight balance line for some users these days, particularly as an everyday phone. It seems that people may be starting to prefer smaller phones again rather than the larger ones. Maybe that's just where we're at in the point in the preference cycle now. Maybe it's because the lockdown cycle of the pandemic is over and people aren't using their phones for extended periods again, preferring smaller devices that they use in different ways. Let me explain more. People seem to want a device that they can dip into for a powerfully meaningful experience. They want quality over quantity. And this seems to be behind a trend that people are using it to stream quality content through their iPhone 13 minis to either consume on that device or casting it to other devices. For me, the 13 mini is the perfect companion for my Apple AirPods Pro or for my new HomePod mini for podcasts, radio, and Apple Music. It's not only fantastic to take photos with the sensor stabilization feature that wasn't available on the 12 mini, but paired with iCloud, I can then view my photos on all of my devices and then have them curated for me into moments or on the day collections without having to share my photos on social media. And for this reason, it's not only a great device for quality streaming consumption, but good for more privacy concerns for those who prefer a more discreet device and not necessarily sharing your data everywhere too. And it's interesting that even though I use my phone less, I think I use it for more shorter, more quality experiences. Yes, the odd YouTube video every now and again, but more often listening to content or creating new photos and videos in a very quick and easy way. But when I do want to use the screen on the 13 mini, I know the experience will be a great one with a gorgeous display and great pixel density, making for an engaging, bright experience when I do choose to use it for a significant period of time. The biggest downside for me is that the keyboard can be a bit fiddly at times, especially if you have large hands, but I can live with that one for sure. Alright, so what were you all saying about the 13 mini and why you love it even now in 2023? Let me just check here. Here's one. Steve Jobs was absolutely against making the iPhone bigger exactly for the reasons you cited. He took a lot of heat from the consumer and tech communities. I wish Apple continued with the mini models. Hey, it's interesting. Hey, do you remember when small meant premium? Do you remember the smaller the phone that you could get, the better, more flash, the more premium it was? I remember those days. Here's another one. I had a 13 mini, returned it, thought it too small. Then went back to the Apple store 1 week later and bought another one. Glad I did. Missed the size after going back to my huge Motorola 6.8-inch slab of a phone. Mini is a gem. May not have the sales numbers, but the enthusiasm for this little phone is quite apparent amongst its happy owners. Nice. Here's another one talking about the 14 Pro and the 13 mini. I'm in exactly the same predicament. There's something just too top heavy in the iPhone 14 Pro, especially if you add a cover and lens protector. I think many of us, perhaps slightly older folks, and especially those coming from a smaller form factor like the SE or Mini, with a more practical use case, phone is less of a social media and more of a call and stream whilst on the move device. Yep, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Are finding the balance of the new 14 Pro just too awkward for comfort on the go. I too struggle with the pocket discomfort. I do enjoy the ease of viewing and typing on a large screen, but the dynamic island is frankly a letdown. Always on display is kept off as it drains battery, and I too feel like I'm going to drop the phone whenever I use it one hand. Exactly what I was feeling too. I have a similar dilemma, says somebody else. My provider offered an $800 credit for my 12 mini towards a 14 Pro. I figured it would be nice to have a true zoom camera on a phone, but I'm still trying to get used to the weight of the Pro. I rarely use on display. The camera is all I care about. I was similar, but in the end, I just didn't care about that camera enough, so the 14 Pro went back. I'm with you on this. I used the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max and even tried out the Pixel 7 only to come back to the 13 mini. Apple went the wrong direction with the 14 Plus. Here's another. Had the 13 mini, still have it, and bought the 14 Pro. Wow, this is top heavy, and although I have large hands, this would have been better if it was 5.8 rather than 6.1. I most likely will return it and go back to the mini. It's so light and I don't notice it in my pocket when I'm at the gym. Photos are decent. Yeah. Agree with all of that. Oh, here's one. I would have said you were foolish going bigger with the iPhone 13 mini, but you do have to make mistakes sometimes. I bought a backup mini just in case. Apple don't correct their mistake. Cheers on correcting your good choice. Good decision. Thank you, Anthony. I gave my 13 Pro Max to my wife and got myself a 13 mini. One of the best decisions I've ever made. I have a 13 mini and it works for me because I stream off it. Music goes to speaker, maps goes to my car's dashboard, and movies go to my TV screen. I hardly use the phone, maybe the odd text. I don't need a huge iPhone for those things, just a powerful iPhone. Now that hits the nail on the button for me as well. Thank you, Crewloaf. Oh, Martin's back. I had to come at you one more time. This was ridiculous. The whole video simply about the phone being a little heavy. I mean, for a 9-minute video, simply about the weight of the phone. LOL. You don't have to watch it, Martin, really. What's wrong with you, Martin? Wrong. The 13 mini is a no-brainer option if you prefer a smaller iPhone in 2023. It's a relatively cheap alternative compared to the other iPhones at the moment too. But that's not the reason to get it. You get this because it is both small and powerful, with a crisp, bright display, lightweight, elegant design, versatile camera options with excellent photos, and a very livable battery with wireless charging. There are very few compromises on a superior experience, barring smaller screen estate for typing and consumption, and some limitations on battery life too. You might also miss that telephoto lens. Overall, I highly recommend the iPhone 13 mini for 2023, and it should prove a worthwhile investment, especially if you're attracted to a smaller phone and Apple doesn't come around to re-establishing a smaller phone series again anytime soon. That's it, y'all. Here's another video that you need to see about when I returned my 14 Pro, went back to my 13 mini, or maybe the one below is more what you need right now. Thanks for watching. Come back again soon. Cheers.